My name is James Patterson. Most folks just called me Jimmy. I'm 68 years old now, though some days I feel like I've lived 100 years. And other days I feel like that young kid from Detroit who signed up thinking he'd make a difference in the world.
I suppose I should start at the beginning. Though finding the beginning is harder than you'd think when your whole life feels like it happened to someone else. I was born in Detroit, Michigan, back in 1945, right after the war ended. The big one, World War II. My father came back from Europe with Purple Heart and stories he never wanted to tell. I grew up in a small house on the east side where the factories hummed day and night, and the American dream felt like something you could reach out and touch.
My childhood was simple. Good, even. Mom worked at a diner on Grand River Avenue. Dad got a job at the Chrysler plant. We weren't rich, but we had enough. We had each other. That counted for something back then.
I remember summer evenings sitting on our front porch, listening to the Tiger Scheme on the radio, the smell of Mom's meatloaf drifting through the screen door, the sound of kids playing stickball in the street. Those memories, they're like photographs that got left out in the sun, faded, cracked around the edges, but still there. I graduated from Southeastern High School in 1963. Wasn't much of a student, but I could fix just about anything with an engine. Cars, motorcycles, lawnmowers. If it had moving parts, I could figure it out. Dad said I had mechanical intuition. I just like making broken things work again. Funny how life works out sometimes.
I married my high school sweetheart, Caroline, in 1965. God, she was beautiful. Red hair that caught fire in the sunlight. Green eyes that could see right through all my bullshit. She worked as a nurse at Henry Ford Hospital. We got a little apartment in Hamtramck. Started saving for a house. Started planning for kids. We had 2 boys, Michael, 67, David, 69. Those boys, they were everything. Everything good I ever did in this world. Walked on 2 little pairs of feet and called me Daddy. I got a job at the same Chrysler plant as my old man. He was good, honest work. Union wages, benefits. We bought a house in Warren in 1971. 3 bedrooms, a little yard. Caroline planted roses along the fence. Those roses? She loved those roses. Everything was good. Better than good. We were living the dream my father fought for in Uruk. The American dream. And then came the call.
1990. I was 45 years old. Both boys were grown. Michael was in college studying engineering. David was working construction, talking about proposing to his girlfriend. Caroline and I were finally at that place in life where things get easier, where you can breathe. And then Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. I remember sitting in our living room watching the news. Caroline was knitting something, a scarf maybe. The TV showed footage of Iraqi tanks rolling through desert streets,
President Bush talking about lines in the sand, about standing up to aggression. Something stirred in me, something I didn't understand. I'd never served, never been in the military. Vietnam War happened, but I was essential workforce at the plant. Got a deferment. Part of me always felt guilty about that, like I'd dodged something important, like I'd taken the easy way while other guys my age came home in boxes or with nightmares they'd carry forever. So, I did something crazy. I went down to the recruiting office, told him I wanted to serve. The recruiter looked at me like I lost my mind. "Sir, you're 45 years old," he said. "We don't exactly." But I insisted. I told them about my skills, about my mechanical expertise, about how I could fix anything. They needed mechanics. They needed logistic support. They needed people who knew how to keep equipment running in harsh conditions. 3 months later, I was in Saudi Arabia.
Caroline didn't understand. How could she? "Jimmy, you have a good job. We have a good life. The boys need you. I need you. Why would you throw that away?" I tried to explain about duty, about service, about that gnawing feeling that I'd spent my whole life taking from a country that had given me everything and never given anything back. But the truth I couldn't say out loud, I wanted to prove something to myself, to my father's ghost, to those faded photographs of men in uniform that hung on our living room wall. I wanted to be worthy. Desert Storm was. It's hard to describe. I wasn't on the front lines, wasn't kicking indoors or dodging bullets. I was in the rear, in the motor pools, keeping the vehicles running. Humvees, transport trucks, tanks when they limp back from operations. But I saw things. I saw kids barely old enough to drink, coming back from combat missions with eyes that had aged 40 years overnight. I saw body bags being loaded onto transport planes. And I heard the stories in the mess hollows about ambushes, about IEDs, about friends who were there 1 second and gone the next.
And the desert itself. God, the desert. It got inside you. The heat that felt like breathing through a furnace. The sand that found its way into everything. Your clothes, your food, your lungs. That endless brown horizon that made you feel like you'd fallen off the edge of the world. But I did my job. I was good at it. Got promoted to sergeant. My CEO said I had natural leadership abilities. I think he just meant I was old enough to treat the younger guys like the sons they were. I came home in 1991, 6 months after I'd left. Carolyn picked me up from the airport. She hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. She whispered in my ear, "Don't you ever do that to me again." I promised I wouldn't.
But something had changed in me, in the world, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I went back to the plant, back to the assembly line,
back to the same routine. But it felt smaller somehow, like I'd outgrown it. Or maybe like it had always been too small and I just never noticed. The guys at work would ask about the war. They wanted stories. They wanted to hear about explosions and heroics and all that Hollywood bullshit. I didn't know what to tell them. That I'd spend 6 months fixing trucks in the desert, and I'd had more trouble with sand in the engine blocks than enemy fire. So I just stopped talking about it. Caroline noticed. "You're different, Jimmy," she said one night. "You're here, but you're not here." I told her I was fine. I wasn't fine. The nightmares started about a year after I got back. Not every night, just often enough. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, heart pounding, convinced I could hear mortars falling. Or I'd be back in the motor pool working on a Humvee, and suddenly I couldn't breathe because the air felt like that desert heat pressing down on my chest like a weight. I didn't tell Caroline. Didn't tell anyone. I was a 46-year-old man, a sergeant, a provider. I didn't get nightmares. But they got worse. And then came 9/11. I was at work when the planes hit. We all gathered around a little TV in the break room, watching those towers fall, over and over again and again, like if we watched it enough times, it would start to make sense.
It never made sense. And I felt it again, that pull, that calling, whatever you want to call it. The feeling that I needed to do something. That sitting in Detroit fixing car doors while the world burned was cowardice. Caroline saw it in my eyes. "No, Jimmy, please, you did your part. You did it." But I didn't listen. I was 56 years old when I deployed to Iraq in 2003. Too old for combat operations, but they needed experienced NCOs for logistics and support roles. They needed people who'd been there before, who knew what it was like. I thought I knew. I didn't know shit. Iraq wasn't Desert Storm. It wasn't a clean war with clear objectives and homecoming parades. It was chaos. It was ambushes and insurgents and IEDs hidden in dead animals on the roadside. It was never knowing who was a civilian and who was trying to kill you. It was watching kids get blown apart. I was stationed at FOB Spiker near Tikrit. Forward Operating Base. Sounds official, doesn't it? It was a collection of trailers and tents surrounded by concrete barriers and razor wire, the kind of place that felt like it could disappear overnight, like it was never really there at all. I ran the motor pool again, same job, different war. But the vehicles that came back, Jesus, the vehicles that came back told stories I didn't want to hear. Blood on the seats, holes punched through armor that was supposed to be impenetrable, shrapnel embedded in dashboards, dog tags hanging from rear-view mirrors left behind by soldiers who'd never need them again. I tried to fix them, tried to make them whole again, but some things stay broken no matter how good you are with a wrench. there was this kid, Private First Class Marcus Henderson, 20 years old, from some small town in Alabama. He used to help me in the motor pool when his squad wasn't on patrol. Good kid, always smiling, always talking about his girl back home, about how they were going to get married when his deployment ended. He died on March 15th, 2004, IED on Route Irish. His Humvee came back on a flatbed. I was the one who had to clean it out, had to remove his personal effects. I found a photograph tucked into the sun visor. Him and a pretty blonde girl at a high school prom. Both of them smiling like they had forever. They didn't have forever. They had 4 months. That's when something broke inside me. Not all at once, not like an explosion, more like a crack in a windshield that spread slowly, branching out in 1,000 tiny fractures until you can't see through it anymore. I started sleeping. The nightmares got worse. I'd close my eyes and see Marcus's face, or I'd see the Iraqi civilians we'd passed on patrol, wondering which ones were planning to kill us. Or I'd see that desert stretching out forever, swallowing everything. I started drinking. Just a little at first, enough to take the edge off, enough to make the nights bearable. But a little became more, and more became necessary. I finished my deployment in 2005. Came home to Detroit, to Caroline, to our house with the roses along the fence. But I wasn't home. Not really. Part of me was still in that motor pool, still cleaning blood out of Humvees, still wondering if I could have fixed Marcus's vehicle better, if I could have checked the route one more time, if I could have saved him. Caroline tried. God, she tried. She'd make my favorite meals. She'd suggest we go out, see friends, do things we used to enjoy, but I couldn't. I couldn't pretend that everything was normal when I knew that nothing would ever be normal again. The drinking got worse. I'd come home from the plant and go straight to the garage, sit there with a bottle of Jack Daniels and the memories I couldn't outrun. Caroline would come out sometimes, just stand there in the doorway, looking at me with those green eyes that used to see through my bullshit. Now they just looked sad. So fucking sad. Jimmy, you need help. Please, let me help you. But I didn't want help. I wanted to forget. I wanted Marcus Henderson to stop visiting me every night. I wanted to stop smelling burning flesh and diesel fuel every time I closed my eyes. I wanted to stop being the person I'd become and go back to being the person I was. But you can't go back. No matter how hard you try, no matter how much you drink. I lost my job at the plant in 2007. 23 years on the line, gone. They said that it was downsizing. The plant was struggling. The whole auto industry was struggling. But I knew the truth. I'd been showing up late, calling in sick. When I was there, I wasn't really there. I was just another casualty of a war that nobody back home wanted to think about. Losing that job, it was like losing my anchor. The one thing that kept me connected to the life I used to have. Now I was just adrift, floating in a sea of days that all looked the same. Days measured in bottles, in hours staring at nothing, in arguments with Caroline that I couldn't remember starting. "You're not the man I'm married," she said one night. Her voice was so quiet, so defeated. "I don't know who you are anymore, Jimmy, and I don't think you do either." She was right.
I tried to get help. I really did. I went to the VA, the Department of Veterans Affairs, the place that's supposed to take care of soldiers when the war is over. I sat in a waiting room for 5 hours just to be told they couldn't see me that day. Told to make an appointment, come back in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. 6 weeks while I'm drowning. I made the appointment, went back, waited again, finally saw a doctor for 15 minutes. He diagnosed me with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Like giving it a name would make it better. Like 4 letters could explain why I couldn't sleep, why I couldn't hold my wife, why I couldn't be a father or a husband or even a goddamn human being. They put me on medications, pills with names I couldn't pronounce, anti-anxiety, antidepressants, sleep aids. They helped a little, and not to take the sharp edges off, but they also made me feel numb, disconnected, like I was watching my life through foggy glass. And they didn't bring Marcus back. They didn't make the nightmare stop. They just made me too dulled out to care as much. Caroline left me in 2008. I don't blame her. She tried for 3 years. 3 years of living with a ghost. Of watching the man she loved disappear into a bottle. Of sleeping next to someone who woke up screaming. Of being afraid in her own home because sometimes I'd wake up swinging, thinking I was back there. Thinking she was the enemy. The divorce papers came in the mail. I didn't invite her. What was I going to say? Please stay with the broken shell of the man you married? She deserved better. She'd always deserved better. She moved to Ann Arbor. Got an apartment near Michael, our older son, the engineer. He had a good job, a good life. He looked at me the same way Caroline did, with that same sad confusion. Like he was trying to find his father in the wreckage and coming up empty. David stopped talking to me altogether. I couldn't blame him for that either. Who wants a father who's a drunk, who's a burden? I lost the house in 2009. Couldn't keep up with the mortgage. No job, no income. The VA disability payments barely covered food and booze. The bank foreclosed. I had 30 days to get out. Those roses Caroline planted, they were blooming when I packed up my stuff. Red and pink and yellow. Beautiful. I thought about digging some up, taking them with me, but where was I going to plant roses? Where the hell was I even going? I moved into a cheap apartment in Detroit.
The kind of place with stained carpets and thin walls and the smell of 3 years of other people's mistakes soaked into the plaster. It was all I could afford. 300 square feet. Barely enough room to turn around. But it was mine for a while. And the economy crashed that year. 2009, the Great Recession, they called it. The auto industry went under. GM and Chrysler filed for bankruptcy. Detroit was dying. Factories closing, people leaving, whole neighborhoods turning into ghost towns. I was just one more ghost in the city full of them. I tried to find work. 54 years old with a spotty employment record and a bad case of PTSD. Nobody was hiring. Nobody wanted a broken-down mechanic who sometimes couldn't make it through an interview without his hand shaking. The VA appointments became harder to keep. The clinic was across town. No car, public transportation that barely functioned. I'd miss appointments, and then I'd have to reschedule, wait another 6 weeks, another 8 weeks. The prescriptions would run out. I'd have to ration them, skip days, make them stretch.
Or I'd just give up. Stay in that shitty apartment. Drink the days away. Let the world forget I existed. Because I'd already forgotten. I lost the apartment in 2010. Couldn't pay rent. Got evicted. I packed what I could carry into a duffel bag. Clothes. Some photos. My discharge papers. The Purple Heart my father brought back from Europe. Everything that proved I'd existed. That I'd mattered. All of it fit into one bag. That's how I ended up on the streets. You know what's funny? Well, not funny, but ironic, I guess. I'd spent my whole life in Detroit. Born here, grew up here, worked here, raised my family here. And suddenly, I was invisible. People look through homeless people. Not at them, through them, like they're ghosts, like acknowledging them might be contagious. I'd sit on a corner with a cardboard sign that said, "Homeless vet, anything helps," and watch people cross the street to avoid me. Watch them look everywhere except at my face. It's a special kind of erasure. Being in a city full of people and being completely, utterly alone. The first few weeks were the worst. I didn't know the rules, didn't know where to go, where it was safe to sleep, where you could get a meal, where the cops wouldn't hassle you.
I slept in doorways, under overpasses, in abandoned buildings. The same buildings I used to drive past on my way to the plant. The same streets I used to know like the back of my hand. But they were different now. Hostile. Dangerous. Or maybe I was different. Maybe they'd always been this way and I just never had to see it. Winter came. Michigan winters are brutal. Below freezing, snow that falls and doesn't melt for months. Wind that cuts through every layer you wear it and finds the skin underneath. I thought I was going to die that first winter. Wriggling. I'd lay down at night under newspapers and cardboard, feeling the cold as seep into my bones and think, this is it. This is how it ends. Frozen to death in the city where I was born. But I didn't die. Turns out I was too stubborn, or maybe too stupid, or maybe there was still some tiny part of me that wanted to live, that thought there might be something worth raking up for. I found the bridge in early 2011. The Ambassador Bridge connects Detroit to Canada. Big suspension bridge over the Detroit River. Under the bridge on the Detroit side, there's a place, a little area where the concrete support structures create these alcoves, I guess, protected from wind, hidden from view. Other people had found it too. Other homeless, other veterans, mostly. We just sort of gravitated toward each other, like magnets, like we recognized something in each other that the rest of the world couldn't see. There was Carlos, Marine, did 3 tours in Afghanistan, lost both legs to an IED, in a wheelchair, but it was broken. One wheel didn't turn right. He dragged himself around on his hands in this broken chair, and somehow it'd smile. Still better than the alternative, he'd say. There was Angela, Army medic, Iraq. She tried to save a kid who'd been caught in crossfire, held him while he died. She didn't talk much, just sat there staring at the river, her hands moving like she was still trying to stop bleeding that had stopped years ago. There was Tommy, Navy, Persian Gulf, older than me by 10 years. He'd been on the streets for almost 20. He was like the mayor of our little community. Knew where everything was, who to truce, who to avoid. He looked out for us under that bridge. It became a home. Not a good home, not a safe home, but ours. We looked out for each other, shared food when someone managed to scrape together enough for a meal, shared blankets when the temperature dropped, shared silence when that's all we had left. Nobody judged, nobody asked questions. You'd been in the shit, that was enough. You cared scars nobody else could see. We all did. We were the forgotten ones, the casualties that don't show up in the official counts. The ones that came home alive but couldn't figure out how AIM lived. I lived under that bridge for 3 years. 3 years that blur together like watercolors in the rain. Days measured by where you could get food. Nights measured by whether you make it to morning. Seasons marked by how many layers you needed not to freeze to death. I drank. Of course I drank. What else was there? You could get a pint of bottom-shelf vodka for $5. Panhandle for a few hours and you had enough to make the voices stop, to make Marcus's face fade, to make the whole damn world blur into something manageable. But Tommy didn't drink. He'd been sober 15 years. Said it was the only way he'd survived as long as he had. He'd watch me with these sad eyes, these knowing eyes, like he was looking at a past version of himself.
"You're killing yourself, Jimmy," he said to me one night. We were sitting around a little fire we'd made in a metal barrel. Carlos was asleep in his wheelchair. Angela was staring at the river, like always. "I know," I said. "So why don't you stop?" he asked. I didn't have an answer.
Or maybe I did, and I just didn't want to say it out loud. That stopping meant feeling, and feeling meant remembering, and remembering meant facing everything I'd done, everything I'd failed to do, everything I'd lost. It was easier to drink, easier to die slowly than to try to live. But something happened in 2013 that changed things. It changed me, maybe. There was a kid, not a kid really, 22, 23, fresh out of the army. Name was Daniel. He showed up under our bridge one day, looking lost, looking like a ghost. His eyes had that 1,000-yard stare we all recognized. I rock. You could always tell. He had a backpack and a discharge form and nothing else. No family, no support. The VA had given him some papers and sent him on his way. Thank you for your service. Good luck. Tommy took him in, showed him the ropes, where to sleep, where to eat, how to survive. And Daniel looked at us like we were lifelines, like we were the only people in the world who understood. Because we were.
I started talking to Daniel. Not a lot, just small things about his service, about what he'd seen. He'd been in Fallujah, lost his best friend in a firefight, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't make the sounds of gunfire stop echoing in his head. He was me. He was all of us, just 20 years younger and at the beginning of this nightmare, instead of drowning in the middle of it. And watching him made something crack open inside me. Some wall I'd built up, some protective barrier between the person I used to be and the person I'd become. I saw my sons in him, Michael and David, the boys I'd abandoned, the boys who'd watched their father disappear into bottles and anger and the silence. What if they ended up like this? What if the cycle just kept going? Men serving, men breaking, men falling through the cracks. Nobody catching them. Nobody even noticing. One night, Daniel didn't come back to the bridge. We waited, checked the usual spots, asked around. Nothing. It was like he just vanished. We found him 3 days later in an abandoned warehouse about 2 miles from our bridge. He'd hanged himself, left a note that just said, "I can't do this anymore." That broke me. Really, truly broke me. This kid who'd barely started his life, who'd served his country, who'd done everything he was supposed to do, and we'd failed him. The system failed him. The VA failed him. The country he'd fought for failed him.
We all failed him. I got drunk that night, drunker than I'd been in years. Drank until I couldn't remember my name, until I couldn't see straight, until I passed out under that bridge with the sound of cars rumbling overhead, and the certainty this was it, that this was my life, and I was gonna die here, forgotten and alone, just like Daniel. But I woke up. The sun was coming up over the river, One of those Michigan sunrises that turns the sky pink and orange and makes everything look softer somehow, gentler. Tommy was sitting next to me, just sitting there, waiting for me to wake up. "You still here, Jimmy?" he asked. Not unkindly, just, checking. "Yeah," I said, "I'm still here." "Good," he said, "because we got work to do." And that's when things started to change. And Tommy had an idea. It was crazy, probably impossible, but it was something. He wanted to create a support group right there under the bridge for veterans, homeless veterans, the forgotten ones. Not official, not connected to the VA or any organization, just us, sitting together, talking, sharing our stories, remembering we were human. "Nobody else is going to help us," Tommy said, "so we got to help each other."
It started small. Just the four of us. Me, Tommy, Carlos, Angela, meeting once a week, sharing whatever food we'd scrounged up, talking, or not talking, just being there, proving to each other that we existed, that we mattered, that Danielsbeth wouldn't be for nothing. Word spread, slowly, through the homeless networks, the invisible lines of communication that exist between people's society has decided don't exist. More veterans started showing up. Young ones, old ones, men, women, all branches of service, all broken in different ways. We'd sit in a circle under that bridge. No judgment, no expectations, just a space to be, to hurt, to remember, to try to heal. I found myself talking, really talking, for the first time in years, about Caroline, about my boys, about Marcus Henderson and his photograph tucked into a sun visor, about the motor tool and the blood and the guilt that ate at me every single day. And people listened, really listened, not because they had answers, but because they understood. They carried their own Marcuses, their own photographs, their own guilt. We were the same, all of us. Different wars, different traumas, but the same broken souls, trying to figure out how to keep breathing. I stopped drinking. Not all at once. Not like in the movies where someone has a revelation and goes cold turkey, but gradually, week by week, replacing bottles with conversations, replacing numbness with connection. It was hard. God, it was hard. The withdrawals, the shakes, the nightmares that came back full force without alcohol to dull them.
But Tommy was there. Carlos was there. Angela was there. The group was there. I wasn't alone anymore. I started going back to the VA, actually keeping appointments, actually taking my medications the way I was supposed to. It helped. Not a cure, never a cure, but better, manageable. I started feeling like a person again, like maybe
Maybe I wasn't just a ghost haunting the streets of Detroit. Maybe I was Jimmy Patterson, 68 years old, broken, but still here. Still fighting. I'm still under that bridge. Still homeless. Still struggling. The system hasn't changed. The VA is still overwhelmed. The wait lists are still months long. Housing for homeless veterans is still a joke. Nothing has been fixed. But I'm different. I have purpose now. Every week we meet. Every week more veterans come. Some stay, some disappear. Some don't make it. But we keep showing up. We keep being there for each other. We keep remembering that we're not forgotten. Not by each other. I think about Daniel sometimes. About how young he was. About how much life he had left to live. About how the weight of his service was too much for one person to carry alone. We shouldn't have to carry it alone. None of us should. But we do. And so we have to find each other. We have to build our own communities, our own support systems, our own reasons to keep waking up.
I haven't seen Caroline in years. Haven't seen my boys. They have their lives. Good lives, from what I hear. Michael got married. David has 2 kids. I'm a grandfather, and I've never met my grandchildren. Maybe someday. Maybe when I'm more whole. When I have more to offer than apologies and explanations. But for now, this is my life. Under the Ambassador Bridge with my fellow forgotten veterans. We're not invisible to each other. We're not erased. We're here. And that's something. In a world that tried to forget us, that's everything. My name is James Patterson. I'm 68 years old. I'm a veteran. I'm homeless. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a father who failed his children. A husband who couldn't be what his wife needed. But I'm also still here. Still fighting, still trying, still helping other veterans find their way in the darkness. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's my redemption. Not being the hero I thought I'd be, not being the man I used to be. But being this man, this broken, scarred, still standing man who refuses to let another Daniel slip through the cracks, who refuses to let his brothers and sisters in arms face this alone. We're the forgotten veterans. But we haven't forgotten each other.
And that makes all the difference.